hunting,
fishing,
cooking,
camping,
conservation,
travel,
gardening,
photography, family.
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 This is the Outdoor Rules Podcast. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. This is Mike, and I am back in Quentin, Pennsylvania, the family home, and I'm here joined kind of by the rest of the guys. Say hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Dad always does this. Every podcast he's on, he starts with what time of day it is, even though, as we keep saying, nobody that's listening to this knows what time of day it is.
I know what time it is.
Well, hopefully you're listening to this in the morning.
Hello.
There's Mark.
Hello.
All right. Hi, Matt. We're doing like all kinds of new stuff today. It's great because we're together. We got some fancy new sound equipment that we're trying to figure out how it all works. So hopefully, if we're lucky, this sounds better than any previous podcast. But I guess we'll see. It'll either be that or it'll sound much worse. We're also doing some video, right, Mark?
Yeah, we're hoping to start getting these loaded up to YouTube. So with some video, so that'll be another way to share the podcast and for people to watch and see our lovely smiling faces.
Yeah. The only thing Matt hates more than having his voice recorded is having video recorded of himself.
That's true.
No, but that's been kind of fun to start messing around with some video and messing around with other stuff. We're gonna record a whole bunch of episodes here, kind of back to back to back, and then we'll be releasing them. But we just kind of got together this morning as we were testing gear out, and Poppy had an episode idea. Dad, what do you want to do today?
Well, I just wanted to talk about fishing and you guys growing up.
So kind of a fishing memories episode.
Mostly fishing. I could think of a whole lot of different episodes or things growing up, other sports and things like that, soccer, Little League, T-ball, but I thought I'd stick to one that you guys were good at.
Wow.
That hurts. He didn't mean you, man.
Yeah.
You were
Matt,
good at those other things.
Matt was the best of the athletes, yes.
He just didn't excel at growing taller than 5'8".
Yeah.
But he did excel to jump into it. He did excel at fishing right from day one. I mean, I think like we talked about in an episode earlier, the night before we took Mom into the hospital for Mike to be born, we were fishing at Middle Creek with Matt, and that was for sunfish and things like that. But I think it progressed more into trout fishing. I was kind of thinking maybe we would start talking about trout fishing and you guys when you were little. I think starting closest to home, I'm sure there's some stories about the Snitz Creek, because that is the closest place that we can go trout fishing, and you guys you went there by yourselves, in fact, as you were smaller. And we did have one picture that Mark said, "Oh, that's my first trout I ever caught." Do you want to give a little thing on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember once trout season came in the fall, we'd always go to camp for the opener of trout, which we've talked about before. But then that first 2-3 weeks, we would, as soon as you got off work, we would be going somewhere so that we could trout fish after school and after work. And the Snitz Creek was close here, within a mile of Quentin. We could be there. And I remember that as a vivid memory, walking down. And that was the first fish that I can remember that I'm confident that I baited the hook, I made the cast, I caught the fish, I reeled it in, I did everything by myself completely without any assistance.
How old do you think you were?
4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you have like an earliest fishing memory?
Not really.
Yeah, it's just like something.
It all just blends together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's not necessarily my earliest
No.
fishing memory, but it's the first fish I remember being so proud of because I had done everything myself.
mhm.
It wasn't like here's a rod, here Dad had to cast for me, Dad hooked the bait up for me, put the worm on the hook for me, that type of deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it maybe wasn't the earliest memory, but another thing I remember with you two guys and with Pop Grant in the wintertime, back when the pumping station, and this is in the Hammer Creek, was going, you would go down there and catch some really nice trout. It started out, I think, fishing for natives. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we used to fish that little creek that flows in right where the pumping station was, which I don't really know. We know the name of that for sure. Is it Poplar Run?
Oh, that does sound
I
right.
think
Yeah,
that's,
I
I
think it
think
does
that's
sound
what
right.
Pop Grant always called it, but I never knew whether that was actually the official name.
Flowed down through a beautiful set of big rocks and things like that where it started, which are now covered with graffiti from people hiking in there. But
Yeah, it's a place that's kind of gotten messed up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that is, I do always tell that story. So much of my professional life has been focused on native fish conservation, and I really do remember Pop Grant taking us over there and basically saying we're going to do something a little different today, and fishing for native brook trout in that tributary, and just catching them and thinking, wow, this is something different, this is something special.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know another creek in our area that really has that.
No, I wonder if
Upstate,
they're still there.
Upstate, it's very common, but here it is not in this part of
I
Pennsylvania.
think in northern Lebanon County, there's some creeks that have that yet, but I don't
Yeah.
know about around our area. That
Yeah.
was definitely the closest place to go for natives.
I haven't fished that since we were kids. I have no idea whether they're still there. I hope they are.
Yeah.
And when we talk about it, I mean, you say a tributary. I mean, if it's as wide as my truck, it's 6 inches deep.
Yeah,
there's
right.
places where it gets wider, but it's super shallow.
And there's boulders that make some pools, and there's
Yeah.
some pour over pools and stuff in there, but it's small.
Right.
But I remember with that creek also, as CJ was younger, we would go there, and I went there with you. I think one Sunday afternoon we were looking for crayfish and things
Yeah,
like
she
that.
used to love to go look for catch frogs in that pond, in that creek.
Yeah, and I guess I think what you're talking about, that my memory of that is a time or two, like you're saying, in the spring that Pop Grant took us over there, and this is the Hammer Creek. It's, I don't know, how would you describe where it is, Matt?
Well, it's essentially in Lancaster. Where we were fishing was really in Lancaster County, I think.
Yeah, if you start here in Quentin and get on 322 and head towards Ephrata, it runs through what we call the South Mountains, and as it comes down out of the hill and down out of the hill down into the lower areas where the Hammer Creek is, which is now runs into Speedwell there. It's probably 6 miles from here.
Yeah, it's right on the Lebanon-Lancaster County line,
Mhm.
more or less. And then, like you're saying, Dad, the Hammer Creek starts actually pretty near Rexmont, right?
Yes.
Is that Buffalo Springs?
Yes, I think it is. That's part of it. There's a couple different. There's actually a small creek that starts near where Alcoa was, and it runs down through the meadow there, and then it disappears. And then it comes. Then I assume it's what comes back up at Buffalo Spring.
In the business, we call that subbing out.
Yeah,
It
well,
subs out.
Subbed out. It also comes down from the pumping or from the Rexmont dams.
Oh yeah, that's all part of the same
yeah,
system.
Right.
And then it flows. Which direction is that it flows, like from Rexmont over to Speedwell Forge?
Essentially south.
Yeah.
Flows
I would
south.
say east and south, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, it's funny how all of that stuff is like so connected. I don't know. When I was a kid here, it felt like, everything felt big and far away.
Yeah.
And I think if we're talking about fishing memories, it's hard not to talk about the Rexmont supply dams.
Yes.
Which were it was a pair of small lakes created as water supplies, right?
Created water supplies. The way the water got there is they pumped the water from the pumping station in Hammer Creek to there. And then they used that as part of the Lebanon water supply.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I never knew any of that.
That means they pumped the water from the pumping
Pumping-
station, and some of it would eventually work its way back to the pumping station
Yeah, it
in a
was,
loop.
Yeah.
right. Okay, so yeah, I mean, just like I know for our listeners who aren't familiar with the Lebanon area, just trying to give you an idea of this. So Dad started with the pumping station on the Hammer Creek. That's a small low head dam on the Hammer Creek where they had head gates and stuff that they could control the level of the pool above, and they pumped water out of that spot on the Hammer Creek to this pair of small lakes, what we called the supply dams, the Rexmont supply dams,
Supplied water to Lebanon.
which was actually at the top of that drainage. And those supply dams were part of the city of Lebanon's water
Yes.
supply.
And let me add, I think all of that happened before I was born. I don't remember them doing any pumping after I was born, or I don't remember ever doing any pumping.
Yeah.
It's just from stories from the rules growing up in Rexmont and knowing what was going there. So
Right.
all
And
part of it.
if you've listened to previous episodes, like particularly the one about Pop Grant, we talked about Rexmont. That's essentially where the historic family farm was in the town of Rexmont, in the village of Rexmont, just outside of it. So seemed like a big world when we were
Yeah.
kids, but it's kind of really a small world.
I don't think I ever connected that as a kid that the supply dams in the Hammer Creek were one until the Game Commission took them out, and they called that, and they took out the dam at the pumping station at that time
that's
too.
not there anymore.
Oh,
either.
it's not.
It's not
And they
there
all
anymore.
called it, the whole project they did it was called the Hammer Creek Restoration Project.
The other place I wanted to go with this, and with Matt, one of the things I was really proud of that he did early on, and my recollection was that Pop Grant would take you guys down there in February
Yes.
before the
season
season closed and things like that.
We used to fish there in the winter at the at the pumping station dam a lot.
And
in the
Matt
winter.
caught several large trout there one day, and instead of bringing
No,
them home,
I don't think it was one day
well, you caught several large trout at that spot.
over the course
And
of
someone
years,
at his
yes.
age at that time would not have even considered throwing like a 20-inch trout back, and he threw him back.
I actually remember you caught two great big ones in one day.
I remember that
It
also.
made
yeah.
me so mad.
Yeah.
I remember pissing off some other guy that was fishing when we got there one time.
That sounds right too.
He was fishing and he said, I can't catch anything. And I think 2 or 3 casts later, I caught like an 18-incher.
Yeah.
And then I was putting it back and he was saying, you're letting let that fish go. And I'm like, yeah, there's more than one of them in here.
Oh yeah. But anyway, the Rexmont supply dams, like I really feel like some of I'm like all of us. I don't really like have a oh, that was the first time I went fishing memory, but the supply dams figure large in my memory as, the couple of places we went. We talked about the Snitz Creek. We fished different parts of Snitz Creek, but some of it we could get to, like Mark was saying. I remember riding our bikes over there. We probably walked sometimes. I remember Mom taking us and dropping us off like at one place, basically the closest point to Quentin, and then picking us up a mile downstream several hours later. But I remember in the summertime, especially, always wanting to go to the Rexmont supply dams because it was a place that was full of fish. I mean, there were lots of bluegill, and there were some big bass in it. There were probably other sunfish species in
I
there.
fished it at night for bass and things like that. But I also remember from Little League games, some good ones, some bad ones. After Little League games, you went to do what you really wanted to do.
Oh,
You
yeah.
would go fishing, And I think we were looking through pictures earlier. One of the pictures that I found was Mark sitting with Grant, and Grant you were probably a
13,
teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Grant was how little, he was
1.
2 or 3 years
Yeah.
old when we were fishing. So yeah, we did a lot of fishing at Rexmont. Not a place where you caught spectacular fish.
I don't know if
but-
that's true.
Well-
There were some giant bass in there.
Well, they were giant to you at that time.
No, They would be giant to me now.
Well,
There were 5-6 pounders in there.
yeah, not many.
Yeah,
of them.
for sure.
The biggest one that I ever remember, and I don't think we landed it. Do you remember the one I had a bass hooked like a 10-incher, and a bass came up and ate
Yes.
it while
On
I was reeling it
near the inlet to the upper supply dam. Yep.
There was a rock barrier that went across there
Yes.
at the back half of the upper
Mhm.
dam, and it, you could see it. It was 2 foot underwater maybe, but you
Yep.
could see the fish just going in and around and over that. I remember that, and I remember seeing big bass in there.
I probably think that's where probably my love of largemouth started.
Yeah, I bet it is because we could sight fish for them a lot
Yeah,
of
we
times.
used to, when that spring came and they started to spawn, we sight fish for them a lot
Ann Boyer,
and fairly successfully.
yeah, Ann Boyer took me over there one time early in trout season. I don't know why that's where we went. And I don't think Ann was fishing, or I don't remember that she was fishing, but she took me. And I remember catching like a 19 or a 20-inch largemouth that was already up,
Mm-hmm.
that I pitched just a night crawler to, and it ate. And I caught that fish on a Quantum Micro rod and reel. Remember when we fished those Quantum Micros? Like that was all we would fish with for trout. Like 4.5 or 5 foot long rods and those tiny little spinning reels and 4-pound test. Yeah. And then the lower supply dam had crappie in it too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember them being in the upper dam though.
I don't think we mentioned either. It was stocked with trout.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
we went over there that
Yeah.
time.
Were both dams stocked with trout, or just
Yes,
the upper?
yeah.
Okay, I remember the upper being more for trout.
I enjoyed the upper much more than the lower because of it being more of a woodland setting.
Yeah, I enjoyed the lower because I was at better fishing there, and that's where Pop Grant would take us.
He also taught you about catching ducks there, didn't he?
Pop Grant, that was one.
Oh yeah.
That was one of my favorite Pop Grant memories. That was Liz and I the first time I ever remember doing it.
Oh, he did that quite often.
Yeah, I know, but the time I remember doing it, he would take, if the fishing was slow, he would take your canned corn, because we'd always go over the canned corn to catch sunfish. And after a bit, he'd say, "You want me to hypnotize a duck?" And so,
Which you always did.
of course,
I mean,
at
yeah.
7 years old, yes, I would like you to hypnotize a duck. So the lower dam had a big spillway, and across the top of the spillway, it was like an overflow spillway. If the if the lake ever rose to a point where because of flooding, it had a bigger spillway, and it had a catwalk across the top of that with like 2 pillars that held the catwalk up. So he went down onto the spillway and started throwing corn to these ducks. And then as they got closer and started eating the corn, he'd throw the corn closer and closer and closer until he wound the corn around the pillar where the duck couldn't see him. And then when they got around the corner, he'd snatch the duck, shove its head under its wing, and then set it there.
He'd rock it for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like 10, 15 minutes later, the duck would stick its head up and look very confused and then just waddle off.
And he was very adept at all of the steps of this, but in part because they raised ducks on the farm, and he was familiar with them.
Right.
And so it was like in one motion.
Yeah.
He would it wasn't like catching a duck and it's flopping all over.
Oh,
the place.
no.
He would snatch the duck up, get its head under its wing, rock it for a second, and set it there.
The duck went from eating corn to
Hypnotized. Yeah, as he put it. Right.
Yes.
I think that's the same
second
technique that they use on pheasant farms when
I'm
they
sure.
put birds out. I think they call it rocking them.
Well,
But-
you guys did that, didn't you? When you raised them the time they took you out pheasant hunting?
Yeah.
I
You
don't
stopped.
remember if we rocked them that time or not, or if we just let them go. But anyway, yeah. And then, like Dad was saying, I probably have more sympathy now from a professional standpoint for what the Game Commission did, but just because maintaining dams, particularly old dams that weren't built to any standard, is an expensive proposition. But right around the time I was in college, right, they ended up taking they took the supply dams out first, like breached the dams and drained them.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I was on a group of local residents trying to save the dams.
Yeah.
And growing up with you guys going there and everything, it was a beautiful setting. It was one of the nicer settings. The upper dam was completely in the woods, in the mountain. We call it the South Mountains. It's not that big, but and the lower dam was a little more around farmland on the one edge, but it still had wooded around one side. So it was beautiful, and it was a great place to take kids, especially learn to fish, or even like Matt was talking, there were some nice bass and fish in there, and nice for stock fish when they did it in the spring. But the Game Commission at the time, and we were talking to them, they wanted a 3-1. They would have given the land over to the group, but they needed 3 times that amount to match up for them to take it. And then it would have had to be in the right place, I assume, and it just never worked out.
Yeah.
And if that would have happened, they still would have had to repair the dams to meet standards and things like that. So,
Right.
So they just basically came and cut a V, and it was gone.
Can I just say the memory I have of the biggest creature ever caught at the supply dams?
I know what you're going to say, I think.
That frog.
Oh, my God.
Dad caught a frog.
Yeah.
That was like.
It was.
It may be that I was young, and at the time it looked like it was that big, but it had to have been that big.
Well, it completely filled up the bottom of a minnow bucket.
Yeah. It was a couple pounds.
It was a huge one.
It was gigantic, a huge bullfrog.
And
Robert would have loved that.
Oh, man.
We caught it. We brought it home in the minnow bucket, and I think we took it back and dumped it at the same spot eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we let it go.
Yeah.
I never ate frog legs as a kid. You didn't. That wasn't something you guys like. Pop Grant was into, or
No, I ate them at Reading in a restaurant. I ordered them
right,
one
but
time.
we never made them.
Never made them. No,
Right.
We didn't catch that many that big. That was
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, but we never tried.
all
either.
my time. Oh, I did every time I'd see a big frog.
Yeah,
I'd
but I
fish
mean,
for it.
we
But
never
we never went over with a
out
light
to try to
at
catch
night.
frogs.
No,
Right.
no, we never went geeking or whatever you want to call it.
The first time that I ever caught a frog with the intention of eating it was with Robert, because he said, "I want to go
Yeah.
catch a frog and eat it." How do you say no to that?
Well, you don't.
Well, I don't know.
Did I tell you last night that I'm in big trouble about that?
No.
Well, I took Robert to the pond where we catch frogs on Thursday. I don't know, whatever, the day before I came, and he wanted to go check out the pond. I said, okay, we'll check out the pond, but we're not getting all the frogging stuff out. It's too early in the year. We're not going to see any. We saw 9 in like 20 minutes. Yeah.
Are you an aquatic animal specialist?
He is not going to let me forget that. So what I did was I promised him that Poppy would take him to catch frogs, and Poppy was there.
No, I want to do that. I'm into that.
So
because I always would, if I would see a frog, I would try to catch it. And one of my favorite frog stories, I think maybe you were there, Matt, when I caught the big smallmouth up at the mine hole, where's now the golf course.
Yes.
So I caught a frog there, and I put it on
no.
and threw it out in the water because I knew there was a big smallmouth there.
Mm-hmm.
And next I see this smallmouth slowly coming up to right underneath the frog, and all of a sudden, the frog disappeared. I caught probably the biggest smallmouth I've ever caught around here.
Yeah.
So, but we used to fish that quite a bit.
Yeah, we
big-
want to.
Yeah, we
We're
have
gonna-
a whole episode about that.
We do.
will?
We're
Okay.
going to do that's one that we're going to try to get Uncle Dick or
Talk
Uncle
about
Sam
the
on,
mine.
because
Good idea.
we'd really like to talk specifically more about the history of the Cornwall Iron Mine and what the mining itself was like, and then kind of the aftermath of the whole thing, and our fishing around the
I can't
Or
brag about my
semi-
smallmouth bass.
illegal fishing.
Not yet. You gotta wait.
Well, you already did.
Okay, well, let's go on to what other places around here do you remember growing up and fishing?
Well, I mean, obviously the river, which
Yeah.
I don't know, was that the second episode of the podcast, is about 3 Mile Island and the river. So,
What about I started with him fishing at Middle Creek? You guys have any other memories of Middle Creek?
I remember going to Middle Creek a few times and catching a lot of small sunfish and not really a lot else. I mean, like, when I dig in the memory bank about Middle Creek, for some reason I associate Middle Creek and beetle spins, which
Yes.
beetle spins are a little lead head jig with a bent wire that holds a blade, kind of makes it like a little bit of a spinner bait.
Well, to talk a little bit about it, Middle Creek was part of Project 70. And then we actually had my aunt and uncle lived there, and they had to move because of Project 70. That was my Miles Hammer and Edna Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Edna Hammer was my father's sister.
Right. So,
and they ended up moving from there to closer to Schaeferstown. But they took, I don't know, hundreds of acres, and they took an area that Pop Grant used to take me down there. I hated when he say we're going to the swamp. They had a swamp there that we would go. I couldn't step across the areas that we stepped across, and if I didn't, I got in the mud that would be really deep. I couldn't get my boots out of. But that area that was a swamp is what they then flooded, and they started. I think it's a 400-acre lake,
mm-hmm.
which we were allowed to fish maybe, if as much, a quarter of it. And all the rest of it was for waterfowl.
Right.
And everybody, they're crazy. But that is now, the waterfowl comes in there in amazing numbers. The snow geese in the winter, and things like that. But when they built the lake, it was like most lakes, as my fish son knows, that for the first couple years, the fishing was fabulous. Not the first year, maybe not the second year, but starting the third and fourth year, you could go down there and catch sunfish the size of your hand, crappies up to 15 inches, and they got bigger after that,
mm-hmm.
Until they all stunted.
Right.
But we would go down there and come home, and I don't know, you probably remember coming home with some and cleaning sunfish in the front of the house.
I really don't.
You don't?
The only thing I remember about going there is that I didn't like it because all we caught was tiny little sunfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
what I remember about
inches.
being there was I'd rather have been at the supply dams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that started. They stunted, and that did happen. So
I'm going to note that I wish I was known as the fishing son, but I think we all know who we'd be talking about if he said that. Instead, I'm just the fish son.
I needed to add biologist in there.
Yeah.
So didn't want your head to swell. But what about any other areas you guys remember? You didn't. I don't think you fished the Swatty very much.
No. I did a little later.
Forge.
The Quiddy later, once we started hanging out with the Criters, because they had land that was adjacent to it. But
talking to Quiddy, I know I did some things in the Quiddy with you that I didn't do many other places. We would leave your house with a little bow and arrow.
Go carp, shoot carp. And
yeah.
The Quiddy is full of carp.
Yeah.
So, or shoot at carp is more accurate.
And that's the Quittafahilla Creek.
The Quittafahilla.
Yeah, the Quiddy. Well, yeah, I mean, Matt said Speedwell. Go ahead on that, Matt.
Well, I mean, we used to, Pop Grant you stored your little John boat down there
for
in the summer. Pop Grant would take us down, and essentially we'd spend the whole day in the boat. I don't know what he did the whole time.
Yeah.
And that was often with also Davey was often with on those.
He would turn us loose.
Yeah. We'd just go with a trolling motor and a little 12-foot boat and fish the lake.
Yeah, and I think that for me is like, the big memory out of Speedwell Forge. And again, now we're talking about the other end of the same system as the supply dams, the other end of the Hammer Creek. I remember the independence of like being turned loose in a boat there. And it must have been okay because I remember we got checked several times. It's now, there's a Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission office on the lake.
Southeast office of the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission.
Has that always been there?
As long as I remember.
I mean, obviously not always, but yeah, it's been there for a long time. It wasn't something that started after.
That was another lake that was started, I think, in the Project 70 system. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't there when I was smaller. But I remember maybe even before you guys, we would go there and fish more below the dam breast. And then also when they first opened it up, they put northern pike in there. And we would fish all the time. And I think, again, that was before you guys. We would fish right there at the bridge that goes over the lake, about the middle of the lake, and catch northern pike.
northern pike were kind of a rumor till we were around.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always like, I remember you guys talking about it and saying, oh, we should pike fish, or if you do this, we might catch pike. But I don't.
Yeah, I don't ever remember catching any pike or muskies.
It would surprise me if there's been a pike caught out of that lake in the last 40 years. Basically, is what I'm getting.
Northern?
At. Yeah. Because I
caught him, but it may have been more than 40 years ago.
Right.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Because I would have been 4 years old 40 years ago, and I don't remember. I can pretty much guarantee we never caught a northern pike.
So if that was a Project 70 lake and Middle Creek was a Project 70 project, I mean, those are both. That's the project is a game commission office. Is the game commission office for down here?
Yes.
And Speedwell. So I guess that was all. They all tied that in together at the same
Speedwell's
time.
the Fish Commission. Yeah.
Fish Commission, right? I never put those two and two together. It's just
Yeah, when we talking about Middle Creek, it's a state-owned wildlife management area,
Mm-hmm.
and they took the land by right of eminent domain,
Mm-hmm.
which is just like, if you work around any of this stuff now, is entirely unimaginable. It basically could not happen anymore.
They probably took 10 farms. I'm guessing the number, but
it's probably more than that. That piece, that's huge.
So that's kind of the history that we're talking about there, and the connection to our family for sure. I don't know. Was there other local stuff that there were other places that we fished, but
yeah,
not nearly as much.
No, a little bit. I think later in life, fishing out around Indiantown Gap, it's a big area.
Yeah, so
that's a lot later.
But we're in Lebanon County. There's it's Army, right? An Army installation, a base.
National. I always associated with National Guard.
Yeah, I think it's definitely National Guard, but there might be Army there too.
It started as an Army base, and I think it went eventually more to Pennsylvania National Guard. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a big facility kind of in the North Mountains in Lebanon County that does have a bunch of water on it, and there are places there. Memorial Lake is there, right? Are there 2 lakes on
Marquette.
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's actually 3. I think there's a Shoey Lake that I don't know that
I think that's
fished.
the one Pop Grant probably had us at.
And then there was Memorial Lake and Marquette.
Yeah.
Marquette was a artificial only lake.
Huh.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Are you sure? I think it still is.
I think
sure
it's
not.
still is.
I've seen people fish. Well,
just because you've seen them doing it doesn't
mean
there
in trout season when people are fishing with live bait.
Well, that's not saying that they don't fish.
Yes, that's what we were.
And then there's some trout streams on the gap.
Yes.
I believe that Fort Indiantown Gap during World War II, I think they trained medics there.
Well, the other thing is Pop Grant used to talk about going out to see the German prisoners.
Yeah, there was a German POW camp there too. Yep.
So
it's a cool history. That's probably one we could do an episode on at some point, because I knew somebody who had access to land that bordered it. I did some hunting there. I have a couple of turkey hunting stories from that place. But anyway, so then expanding out from there, what were you thinking about, Dad?
Well, I don't know how much you want to get into the river, but yeah, the big thing, if you get away from what I call real local, then we go to the next thing that we did a lot of fishing at was the river, and we did it a lot of different ways. I know we talked about in the very first or one of the early podcasts about fishing at Falmouth, and we did quite a bit of fishing at Falmouth, probably more than anywhere else in the river. However, I would take you guys north of Harrisburg, and we did some things up there, wading, a lot of smallmouth bass fishing. I remember, I think it was you one time we were wading with your sneaker and you lost a sneaker.
I don't remember that. Sounds right.
But we fished multiple places above the river and also up the Juniata.
The thing that I remember about the other places that we fished on the river, I don't really remember much about the fishing. I just remember what I felt like was the attractiveness of the names, like Gertie's Notch And McKee's Half Falls?
McKee's Half Falls, yeah.
McKee's,
McKee's.
with a K.
Yes.
McKee's Half Falls. I don't know why. The Clark's Ferry Bridge, Gertie's Notch, McKee's Half Falls, and then the Juniata.
What about the, I'm trying to think of statue. Where's the statue? Statue of Liberty in the middle of the river at
Narrows.
Dolphin Narrows.
Yeah, there's a miniature Statue of Liberty in the middle of the Susquehanna River, which seems just entirely random based on where it is.
But I think right above there is where you lost your sneaker.
No, that probably
or shoe, whatever you were wearing that time.
There you go, Mark. There's a research project for us. We should try to learn the history.
Oh, Rachel we were coming down the river like a month ago, and Rachel read the whole story about the guy who put it up.
All right, we gotta.
She would remember better than I would.
Dig into that at some point.
You know what I remember about Clark's Ferry Bridge was we would fish 400 or 500 yards above the bridge, and you'd be wading in like knee deep water. Now I was smaller than you guys at that point, and then you'd hit a trough that was maybe 10 or 15 feet across. And we were fishing the troughs mostly, but you'd have to swim across it, and then you'd get across the trough, and then it'd be ankle deep, shin deep water until you'd hit the next trough.
That is the only place that I know of or the only place that we fished in the river that I know of where the troughs ran with the current.
Yeah, right.
Everywhere else you would hit troughs that went across, and of course you'd be looking to fish below them in the fast water and things that work came over the top. But there, like you're saying, the troughs ran with the river, just like you're talking. The other thing is, for us or anybody that was bigger, you'd be walking across that in the water that was deep and bang your knee on where the trough went up, because it was a vertical drop in a lot of them. And you could walk the whole way across the river there.
Yeah.
Without, now maybe you when you were smaller it was tougher.
No,
for someone that was an adult, you could walk the whole way across the river.
I hated going there because you would make me wear a life jacket. And I hated fishing in a life jacket, which now it's like, obviously at 8 years old, I should be wearing a life jacket. But I hated having to wear my life jacket to fish there because those troughs at places were deep, 6 feet.
Yeah, well, that's what.
So
you guys, when you're smaller, I think probably you wore life jackets when you were smaller too, but
maybe.
We typically fished in places and waded in places that you could wade pretty much the whole way across the river and not fall into a deep hole. Now, like you talked about the Clark's Ferry Bridge, we could do that above the bridge. Below the bridge, it was different. There were deep holes down there.
Yeah, but below the bridge, there was where the old bridge went across. We used to wade into that a lot.
And I think you're talking just below where the bridge is now. Yeah.
There's a rock ledge. I remember walking out across that rock ledge, but the downriver side of that rock ledge was pretty deep.
I don't remember that.
When I talk to people and I'm like, well, yeah, we used to, when I was a kid, we fished the river a lot. My memory of it was, and I always wanted to ask you guys this and never have, but my memories of it were like starting as soon as the river conditions came down enough that we could fish, which sometimes was Memorial Day, sometimes it was the 4th of July, sometimes it was the middle of May. But I feel like we were there every Saturday and every Sunday for pretty much, that's what it felt like as a kid.
Do you remember that, like,
for the whole summer, though? It was just like all the time.
I like going with me and Matt.
Going with you and Matt and going with Dad and going with Pop Grant. It felt, this is my memory of it. And this is what I'm asking. How much do you think in an average summer when we were fishing at a fair amount, because I distinctly remember your, weekends where we fished it. We wouldn't leave until lunchtime or 2 or 3. We would go over for the afternoon bite, or
usually in the afternoon,
and then come back in the dark. But I can distinctly remember going over there a Saturday and a Sunday. If the fishing was good on Saturday, we just went to church, came home, and our day.
I think in the summertime when school wasn't in, Mike and I fished 4 to 5 days a week. They might not have always been on the river, though.
Right.
Well, yeah, sure. I'm not saying we didn't fish other places, but I'm saying at Falmouth specifically.
Oh, probably 2 to 3 days a week.
Right. We fished a lot at Falmouth.
I fished Falmouth every month of the year. We fished it year round.
Right.
It changed. It would depend on how much water was coming down the river. But when the water was high, we would also fish there. It was just, you fish different spots. we would be fishing when the water was high in a spot where when the water was low, there was no water there. You know what I mean? It just changed.
Mhm.
And certain times it was better for walleyes. It was never, I mean, we never fished. I think that was tremendous for walleyes, but we typically would catch some walleyes and then usually smallmouth bass, but we fished foulmouth all year round. And I think what happened was in the summer when it would get hotter, it was much more comfortable to fish and wade up above
Yeah.
Harrisburg.
Mm.
Plus, I like the water quality above Harrisburg better too. And then I also liked. I guess you guys fished some in Juniata, but not a whole lot.
I kind of remember that the Juniata was something that we would do once or twice a year, kind of thing.
And you never got into Juniata. It was where we would go to catch helgramites when we wanted to fish
Well,
with
I
helgramites.
remember
we did
doing
that.
Yeah,
We often would go there and get helgramites and then go back down to Susquehanna. to
yeah,
bass
yeah.
fish.
There was a place where we'd pull off and you'd park at a gas pumping station and walk back along that grass lot.
Was it gas pumping or was it electric?
Maybe it was electric. I
That
don't
was-
know.
that
Probably
was-
20
that
years
was-
ago.
That was about 2 or 3 miles below the Clark's Ferry Bridge.
Okay. I remember fishing there a fair amount.
You're talking about Marysville?
No, he's not down that far. I don't know if you remember the Pink Pony Bar used to be right there where you turned off the road
No.
and went back. And so
I don't
but
remember
yeah,
that.
that's just down. It's above Marysville, but below
Mm.
Clark's Ferry Bridge.
You kind of can't see it from the highway.
No, you can't see it from the highway. You had to get off and go down
Right.
along the river a little bit.
Across the railroad tracks.
So, but we used to fish a lot more in the Juniata. One of the first times, maybe the only time I took your mother to the river fishing, I took her to the Juniata. And there was a place, you remember fishing all at Newport? I think at Newport, and then you walk down over, there's a road to park. You park along the road, and then you walk down, and then the river's maybe 50 yards from the edge of the road. But anyhow, we went down there and we waded, and your mother slipped in a rock and went under. I mean, completely under. And she came up, and I told her, when you do that, you have to hold your fishing rod up in the air so your reel doesn't get wet. She started flaunting and beating the top of the water with her fishing rod so bad that the line broke, and the lure went fly. We never did get it. And then she was a little angry with me with that. and
I was taking
and then,
that.
and
from-
then as we were leaving and walking back to the car, got out of the water and started up to the grass, she got stung by a bee. And I don't think she ever went fishing there again. And I don't think she ever went to the river fishing with me again.
That was enough.
Yeah, that was enough.
Yeah.
So,
Was that intentional on your part?
well, no, but yeah. So we've used to fish at Juniata quite a bit too. But
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, like I said, I mean, I don't have a lot of specific memories. I stepped on a yellow jacket nest there somewhere. I don't know if that was on the Susquehanna or the Juniata. It was just with Pop Grant one time, and I got stung a couple times, and I'm kind of allergic to those things.
What I remember most is having to park. We'd park at just at the Game Commission parking spot just above the Red Rabbit. Well, just below the Red
Mhm.
Rabbit. And then you'd have to cross the highway, which it's 322 and it's 4 lanes there. So that was always a little bit.
and today it's much worse.
Yeah,
than it
you
was
couldn't
then.
do. You
Yeah,
couldn't do it
couldn't
today.
do it.
You
I
could
wouldn't
not do it today.
Wouldn't be safe.
Yeah.
So going on beyond that, I didn't know if we wanted to get into saltwater fishing and keep it all freshwater. But
Well,
I mean, there were
let's-
trips that we took that I can
let's-
think of.
Let's stay on freshwater because
Yeah.
I think as we get farther out on that, there's a few things that are kind of worth
Yeah.
mentioning. I mean,
Well, so can I add then? We'll go somewhere else.
go ahead.
Let's go to New York fishing.
Yeah, that's where I was going to.
Okay, that's where you were going to. I recollect there was a time when we used to go to Pulaski, to the Salmon River quite a bit, and trying to catch steelhead.
Yeah, trying is a good way to put it.
I think I only ever caught one. And there's
That's
a
the
whole
only
story.
one I ever remember.
Only one story that goes with that. But what I remember also is a time that we were there, and you two, Matt and Mike, were angry because they could see trout underneath ice, and we said, "Let's go! It's time to go." You didn't want to go. You wanted to get those. You recall that?
Well, yeah, we would go and I think this was part of the reason why it was hard. We would go late, like you would go in the winter.
Oh yeah, it was always in the winter.
which was not the best time to go fishing there.
Yeah, but it was January and it was February and there wasn't a lot of other fishing and the river was high or something like that. So we wanted to go fishing.
Yeah, so we went north.
Yeah, we went north.
Instead of going south where it was warmer. We were going north. It was always freezing cold.
Maybe that's why you guys don't like ice fishing and he does.
I don't.
Because he
like
didn't go
like
on
ice fishing.
Okay.
We stayed at the Fish On Motel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a whole other story.
Interesting
I think the
place.
reason we went up there was because it probably cost like $20 a night to stay at the Fish On Motel or something, and you guys liked it.
We would
there.
have a crowd. You guys would go and Dave would go and I think Jeff would go.
Yeah.
And who else? And they had the beds were made out of 2x4s. They shook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a real nice place. That's what I remember. I wonder if the Fish On Motel is still there in Pulaski, New York.
When I was still going to the sportsman show up at Harrisburg, and it wasn't with who has it now?
The NRA.
The NRA didn't have it. They were always there yet.
Yeah.
So that was right in Pulaski. But yeah, I caught that one fish and brought it back to that night. Oh, let me see that fish. He said, come on. He took me and we went over. We walked over through the one door and into what looked like an upper garage or something like that. And he pulled a panel off the floor and he stuck the fish down through. Look at this one that they caught on the thing, he said. So there was really a dive.
I don't understand.
What were they doing with
There
it?
were guys down below staying.
Oh,
That's where they were sleeping.
He pulled the ceiling of their bedroom up and
And
stuck
shoved
the
the
fish
fish down the hole.
I don't remember that. I do remember it was light line fishing with noodle rods, and you fought that fish all up and down the river. And at some point, you lost your
I
glasses.
did, and you guys wouldn't help me with that. You remember that?
You wanted us to strip
Yeah,
down naked
right.
and dunk us in the river to
Yeah,
get your glasses
It was
back.
like 20 degrees in February in Pulaski, New York, and you wanted us to take our clothes off and swim for your glasses.
Just one of you. You weren't
Yeah.
swimming. I was going to hold you by the ankles and drop you down.
As
see?
Robert
'Cause I
likes
could
to
see
say,
him
no,
down there.
thank you.
This seems like the time he was mad at us, Matt, because he dropped his tackle box in the best hole in the river and it floated away and nobody would go after it for
No,
him.
him. He watched it float past him, and then it sank.
Yeah.
I said, "Why didn't you grab it? You could have grabbed it." And I never did find it.
Yeah, well,
Well, it was a deep hole.
right. That's why it was the best hole in the river.
Yeah.
But actually, Dad, you skipped forward there a little bit
Okay.
compared to what I thought we were going to talk about with New York. Right? I mean, because
Ontario?
yeah, I mean, so
Trolling.
the Salmon River is a tributary to Lake Ontario, which is why it gets a run of salmon and steelhead, which are sea run rainbow trout or lake run rainbow trout in that case. But you and Dave, like what led you? What we're getting to is trolling for salmon.
Okay.
What led you guys to that?
Oh, what has led me to every other venture? It was, I think I heard you mention in one other podcast. I think, we were going here, we were fishing down on the beach, and then all of a sudden we switched to fishing in New York. There's another thing, taking advantage of what's available at the time. Okay, we hear they're starting to catch a lot of salmon and things like that up in Lake Ontario, and that's probably the closest place that we can go. So, hey, let's go up there and fish for that. So that's what we did. We went up a couple trips. Well, I remember one of the early trips. I think we wanted to fish for brown trout, and they were saying, "Oh, you were fishing with side planers and stick baits." So we drug some of them around in the shallows, in the shallower part of the lake, and never did catch anything. But then we
I
branched
sort
out.
of feel like that's how most of the trolling trips in Ontario went. We drug
Yeah.
baits around and didn't catch
Oh
anything.
man,
Well, yeah, there's quite a few stories.
Chalk trolling
But
up
then-
to another
Exactly.
thing that
The only
Matt
thing
hates.
I ever really remember catching, well, Mike has a picture here of one big salmon, but I think the most memorable thing for me in all of those trips was the time that you had downriggers out and you ran you had
That was the
depth
same
of the-
trip.
of the downriggers set deeper than the depth of the water we were in, and we ripped the downrigger ball off.
No, we didn't rip it off that way.
Yes, we did.
Oh,
Because
well.
when it ripped off, all the rods went
it's
and toong, and then we had a giant mess.
No, no, I don't believe that's correct. I think I bounced the downrigger ball off the bottom a couple times. But my recollection of that story is the time, I have a picture here of the fish that we brought home. Started out, and before that, we go back to trolling trips. What we did, we went up and did a couple trolling trips, got downriggers on the boat, and everything went up. And what we basically caught were lake trout. We did catch a bunch of lake trout, like 8 or 10 lake trout one time. And we went out to Rochester. Well, we'll go back to Rochester later. But then we went up, and Dave couldn't go. He said, "You take my boat and go." So I went up with Matt and Mike. And we went up, and what I recollect is we started trolling. We caught the only king salmon we ever caught, and I have a picture of it here. And Michael had the rod first because he was the littlest one. I thought we were going to lose a rod. At one point, he was hanging on to the butt of the rod, out over the edge of the boat, holding on with one hand. And luckily, he held on to that till he could get to it and get the rod. And we fought that and got that fish in.
It was a 20-pound king salmon, and I was like
there's a picture
7 years old.
Yep.
I'm starting to wonder, Michael,
So-
is this a theme? Because don't you have an Alaska story about almost losing a rod too?
Yeah, well,
Impressing a guy.
That one,
We'll get to
that
one
guy
another
was
day.
impressed with that.
So-
But yeah,
But anyhow, then we got everything rigged up again. And that was a whole nother issue with you two guys getting all the downriggers set up and everything, the rods in the downrigger, and there were 2 rods in each downrigger, and then we had flat lines out. So we start again. We get going after you catch the fish. And I think what you're referring to is this, Matt. We hooked the second king salmon. At least I assume it was a king salmon. What he did is he swam a circle around the boat. So every single line that we had in the water was now wrapped up in that circle. And I was having all kinds of trouble. Things were getting, and somehow, probably because we weren't real smart about how to put downriggers on, we got the motor in the downrigger cable, and that broke the ball off. And when the ball went down to the bottom, the rods went, the tips were in the water. I thought, man, we're going to break the rods.
so I just want to.
Then, go ahead.
Well,
Well, I was definitely there one time when we were dragging the ball because I remember the boat going.
I
we weren't going
did
anywhere.
drag the ball on the bottom a couple of times.
so I want to just for clarity for our listeners, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, this technique for fishing with salmon, a lot of times they're at very specific depths, and there's other fish that you fish for this way, and you have a device on the boat called a downrigger. So a downrigger works by taking a very heavy lead weight that even at trolling speed stays directly below the boat, and it's on a cable, and the downrigger measures the amount of cable that's out, so you know exactly how deep you're fishing. And then onto that lead weight, you clip. There's a clip to clip your actual fishing line with your lure, right?
Correct. I would say that you're talking about a weight that's like 8 or 10 pounds.
Right.
And then you clip onto that. There's a clip right at the weight to clip onto. And then also you would take if you want to fish at 2 different depths, you'll clip onto the line to the downrigger part, the cable part way up.
Right. And so what we're talking about is, I mean, the cable is like thin wire rope essentially that holds the ball onto the downrigger.
Right.
The fishing line is in a clip. If a fish bites the lure, it pulls the fishing line out of the clip, and then you're fighting it on the rod. Otherwise, the rod has a lot of tension in it because it's tied to the downrigger ball. And I don't remember the story exactly the same as either one of you, and only because I've always told that story as a hilarious story of something silly that happens with downriggers, but I wasn't there. I don't think it was the day we caught this king salmon.
Oh, you don't?
I think it was you and Matt and Dave together, and I think it was a big brown trout because there are also big brown trout in the lake, and I think you guys saw it.
Yeah, we got it to the boat that time, but then we couldn't net it because we could only reel it so far because it was tangled in everything.
Well,
and then it swam in a circle, like you're saying, Dad. It kind of circled. So when you're fighting a fish on a downrigger, you keep the boating gear, because if you stop, all of the other lines that are out, which you can't just reel in, like would fall to the bottom or get tangled. Like you have to keep going. So you have to keep the boating gear. So as you get this fish, whether it was a brown trout or another salmon or whatever it was up to the boat, it makes a circle. The wire line from the downrigger gets in the prop of the outboard motor, cuts the line off, and then the downrigger ball is no longer attached to anything, and it tries to basically drag everything to the bottom.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or sometimes successfully drags everything to the bottom.
And my recollection was the time that we caught the one big king salmon.
It may have been the same trip, but I was not on the boat.
Because,
I was when the downrigger ball was cut off. I was not on the boat.
It was just you and Matt and I that went up that time.
I think it was a different trip. It wasn't. I think it was a different trip. I wasn't on the boat when the downrigger ball got cut off.
Well, to you listen to this podcast, this is how it goes with the stories with the rules.
You
can't believe anything that we say.
I think anybody that's listened to more than 2 podcasts has to know that this is how it goes.
Yeah,
it was his grandfather's shotgun. I was right.
Oh yeah, I got some questions about that, but that's another podcast. So, but anyhow, with that was the only salmon that we ever caught, and did catch some lake trout, some other things I remember, as Matt brought up just a minute ago. I don't know if we were on or not. The time his hair caught fire, that was on that trip.
It was on one of those trips.
Yeah, one of those trips.
Because what used to happen is Pop Grant would go along, but he would not go out in the boat.
Yeah,
right.
So then whoever didn't go out in the boat, he would take us fishing somewhere else from
I think
shore.
it was Sand Creek.
Sand or Sandy Creek is what's in my mind.
Yeah.
You remember we caught some big smallmouths out of that creek.
Really nice ones.
Yeah. But anyway, who's going to tell the story about Matt's hair being on fire?
I'll start out. We stayed at the only campground between Texas and Mexico. I remember a few things there.
It's 2 towns in New York.
Oh.
Yeah. I remember a few things there, like Dave knocking the sign over going into
that's right.
the campground.
He ran the campground sign over with the boat trailer.
But then we're there one night, had the campfire going, and Matt was sitting there by the campfire. And I don't know, do you want to go from there?
You keep going.
Okay. I remember, and maybe we'll have other ideas of what you remember here till we get to it. But I remember sitting by the fire, and Matt was right there by the fire, and there were embers coming off the fire. And one of them got in his hair.
Like landed in his hair.
Landed in his hair. And Dave Arnold said, "Matt, your hair's on fire."
Yeah, with no urgency in his voice.
With just about like that.
And this is after like a whole day of fishing in the boat. So
right. So I was zoned out.
And Matt zoned out. He kind of looks at him like that. And Dave says, "Matt, your hair's on fire." so
we put it out. It was fine.
It wasn't really on fire. It was more just smoldering.
Right.
I think what I'm taking from all this is that there's a term for fishermen who don't necessarily know what they're doing in the fishing world. They're called Googans.
Well,
and I refer to myself often as a Googan when we're doing stuff in the saltwater. But I think what I'm learning is it's hereditary.
Oh, you come by it
naturally.
Yeah, as we say, you come by that honest. Yeah.
I think I like a lot of different types of fishing. I always enjoyed new ones and trying to learn what to do. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that if you want to catch fish, go hire a guide and go out with him, and you'll catch a lot more fish than what we usually do when we start into one of our endeavors.
Oh, for sure.
But the learning process is always important. But getting off of serious stuff like that, I mean, there's other time I remember at Rochester, we went out. I think you were there for sure. We had the side planers out the side of the boat, and we're going along, and some other guy came along with his side planers, and the 2 side planers got caught and ripped ours off. And Dave started screaming at him, "I'm coming to get you," he said. And the other guy packed up and took off.
This is what happens when Googans meet.
Exactly.
There was an intersection of the Googans.
Exactly right.
A confluence of Googans.
Well, I don't remember catching a
How
fish.
did 2 guys in Lake Ontario manage to get that close together with side
Well,
planes?
now you know it was him, not us. And
That guy was a Googan.
and
From
Dave,
your
Dave was
perspective.
driving the boat. What more can I say?
From your perspective, it was him. From his perspective,
Right.
some idiot ran through his side planers and then yelled at him.
So I will say then, for catching fish, and did this a little bit. I think I did it the year before Mike started going, but maybe not. We started fishing at Erie, in Lake Erie, for steelhead in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
and really, really caught a lot there.
Well, yeah, but that was all. Well, not all. A lot of that was because I went to college with a guy named Craig Lucas, and Craig grew up in Oil City, Pennsylvania, out near the western border, about an hour south of Erie and the Lake Erie tributaries, and he was an expert. Even then, he was an expert on steelhead fishing. He's another totally crazy outdoorsman, hunting and fishing. But I mean, Craig helped us get going there, and so we did have the benefit of local knowledge to start out.
I kind of thought I fished there one time before you were there with the school, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember.
I know the first time I went there was with Craig.
I fished there with Craig too, and learned a lot more places than just the place I caught the fish at.
I had definitely never been to the Erie tribs before I fished with Craig, but that was a lot of fun. But I guess in all this, maybe to kind of wrap up, I think what we'll do is wrap up the freshwater part of this, and then maybe we'll just plan on doing another episode on saltwater. But regardless of whether it's fresh or saltwater, part of when you boil it down is that it's not just about the fish.
No.
It's not just about catching fish.
No.
I mean, if it were just about catching fish, you'd learn one place and learn it really well and know exactly how to catch fish there every time you went. Right?
Right.
Yeah, the things I remember aren't the fish most of the time.
Right.
It's all the other stuff that happened.
It's your hair being on fire, cutting the downrigger ball off, and me almost losing the rod off the side of the boat. I mean, I remember the salmon, and I'm sitting here looking at a picture of Matt and I as probably 7 and 9 year olds. I mean, I look like Robert in this photo, and I don't look a lot older than Robert is now, and he's 6. So
that poor kid.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's I don't know. It feels like the adventure in that was being somewhere new, learning something new. I mean, I've said it before, like, I don't knock people for hiring a fishing guide if you have really limited opportunities and, limited equipment to go out, and, it's a good way to go experience something and catch some fish. But
if catching fish is important to you and want to show people pictures of what you caught, that, they have a bunch of fish or something like that, you want to catch fish, hire a guide, you know what I mean? But if that's not our purpose.
If you want to be a Googan.
Yeah. If you want to be a Googan, you want to learn, you want to learn. I mean, the other part of that is everywhere that I go to fish, and I tell people I fished probably in 25 different states and provinces. Every place I go, you'll go and there'll be a guide there. There'll be a person there that really knows how to fish there. And they believe that you're a Googan. And then maybe you are for a Googan there. But you fished, you know what I mean? We fished a lot of different places and a lot of different kinds of fish. And maybe when we get there, we're not going to catch as many fish as that guy. But I'm pretty certain that if you give us a week or so to fish there, we'll pretty much be able to
get something
figured out. We'll get it figured out.
And if they came to the Susquehanna River at Falmouth, they would have been Googans to us.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's not necessarily, we never had that
but it
battle mentality with fishing, but there are people who do.
But it comes down to what's our purpose. I don't think our purpose is necessarily always to catch a lot of fish. Yes, that's fun. That's sometimes a measure of why we're doing it or what we're doing to see that we're doing it. But it's not our purpose. It's always family. It's always, go somewhere or try something new.
Yeah,
somewhere
learn
different.
something.
Yeah, learn something. So
Learn about. I mean, it's it's certainly what I feel like partially made me a curious person that
right.
led me into the sciences. Was just that sense of adventure, willingness to learn, and obviously some love of fish, because it's what I ended up doing.
And we've been blessed that Dad has always kind of been open to just, here's an adventure I'm going to go try, and bring us along.
Yeah, right. Any other concluding thoughts?
We'll have some saltwater stories.
We'll definitely have a bunch of saltwater stories. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate you listening. And as always, you can find all of our content on our website, www.outdoorrules.com. We're on Instagram @OutdoorRules. Obviously, we're also on Facebook. Get a hold of us by email, outdoorrules@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we're always looking for new episode ideas. So definitely reach out. All right, guys. I appreciate you doing this. We'll talk to you next time. Love you guys.
Love you too.
Hunting and fishing, the great outdoors, mixing history, laughter, love, and folklore, creating memories with family and friends. These are the trophies that matter in the end. Outdoor rules.